Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. MG Motor India is planning to sell majority stakes to a local partner in India over the course of next 2 to 4 years. MG Motor India, the local subsidiary of the Chinese-owned passenger vehicle major, currently holds 1% share of the country's passenger four-wheeler market. Now, it is being reported that Reliance, one of the biggest Indian conglomerate, will join players including Hero, Premji Invest and JSW for stakes in MG Motors. The company has an ambitious plan to transform its business by 2028 and bring in local owners in a bid to Indianize the business. There is a lot of chatter around Reliance, of course, following into auto business with MG if it gets the stake. On the show today, what's in store for MG Motors, decoding its attempt to Indianize the company, and will Ambani bid to enter the auto market through MG? All of that and more. With me at this point in time are my colleagues, and my guest at this point is Dilip Chenoy, who's the former secretary of FICCI. Also joining us at this point is P Tharayan, who's the founder editor of Motown India. In the studio is my colleague Rakesh Khar. Before we move ahead with this discussion, please don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to News 9. I want to bring this conversation to you first, Rakesh. It looks like MG has grand plans for India. It has 1% of the current four-wheeler passenger market in India, but it wants to, further expand the business. And in a bid to expand that business, it is looking at Indian partners.
I'm not surprised, Shweta, first of all, because one, that it has a huge success story waiting for it to happen, but it also got a cloud of its investors. That is, let's remember that MG Motors is primarily government owned by government of China. So, we do know the current relations between India and China on the economic front have come under the radar in the last couple of years. So MG Motors couldn't have been completely insulated from that. So we shouldn't be surprised. And I can confirm now, I've spoken to a few people at MG Motors, that they've actually started the process of, wooing various Indian houses, business houses, to try and find the right suitable fit. And they're not public about the reason for it, but the reason for that is quite apparent now. It's quite obvious. And why they've done it, I think they've done the right thing, and I'm happy that if there's an Indian ownership in that particular company, which has so much promise, especially with the EV, domain, they would, have a relatively smoother and more confident run as they mount massive operations.
Absolutely.
There have been challenges in terms of, why did they lose, about the losses in the first year. There is no confirmation whether the Government of India actually asked them to explain their losses despite good sales for the first year. They announced their entry into India in 2019, Shweta, and then they did a quick turnaround. They had a plant in Gujarat which they picked up for production. And this 1%, the company says it's 2%. Today I spoke to some people. And this 2% is translating into a very high revenue share because these are high-end cars.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, it's a growth story, which probably with an Indian investor could get a better shine on it. Who the Indian investor could be, that is a matter of conjecture right now. I don't think Reliance, I don't have any independent information, will come into a play at 1% market share. I think they generally get into companies where there is largely some established track record, but you never know. They could describe it as a greenfield or a brownfield project from their lexicon. JSW is a good fit. They've been keen to expand. At some point of time, Shweta, there was talk about Tata's also investing in a Chinese company or Chinese, government-owned company. There are two more companies who have shown interest to come to India, talking to Tata Motors. So probably Tata could also be a surprise entry.
Tata could be a surprise entry. Dilip, do you agree with Rakesh there that Reliance, very unlikely, of course these are all conjectures at the moment as to who could bid for that stake in MG, but who according to you could be the players looking at, taking up ownership at MG Motors India?
Just a little caveat, Dilip is here. Thank you for being on the show, Dilip. He has been probably the longest running Secretary General at SIAM, Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. So he knows this industry inside out.
Okay. Dilip?
So Rakesh, thanks for that. And thank you, Shweta, for the question. I think there are two challenges here, so Rakesh talked about the challenge that MG Motors was facing in terms of raising money. There's also the press note which, any money coming in from certain neighboring countries has to be vetted by, the government. So in fact, if they want to expand, then if that route is blocked, they have to look at Indian partners. The second thing, and you're really to your question, this whole talk about JSW was raised about 2 weeks ago, right? And at that time, JSW came out with a categorical denial, saying that we are not, here, in that. So obviously, they're looking for an Indian partner, yes. Whether it is the companies that you listed so far, one of them has said no. And as Rakesh mentioned, the market share and the thing is maybe too small for the company or Reliance or someone like that to look at. So they may look at some other company who is looking at the auto space. But Indian companies traditionally, in the non-auto space, have had a reluctance to enter the auto space, right? So even if you, go back to the history and look at when Maruti came in, Escorts was looking at it, but then they opted out. So Maruti actually started a joint venture with the government. There has been no, joint venture as such with the Indian non-automotive player in the automotive space. In the electric space, in the electric two-wheeler space, right? You've had some entry, and even in the electric four-wheeler space, there is no new Indian OE that has come out other than Ola, who's talking about, four-wheeler and two-wheeler. So if at all, it's most likely, the fit would be with the existing Indian OE, but a new player coming in and partnering with MG may be purely in financial terms. It may not be in other aspects like that.
Right. And financial terms, let's quickly mention the production capacity of MG at this point in time from its Halol plant in Gujarat is approximately 70,000 units. It's looking to expand that by 2027 and 28 to 3 lakh units, and is looking to also raise money amounting to 50,000 crore rupees. Now, given the scrutiny around Chinese investment in India and Chinese firms, or firms that are rather operated by people sitting in China, and the scrutiny that it gets, it is therefore a likely bid and a good move for MG to find a local partner.
I absolutely said that. I think to make the course of a particular company which has a growth trajectory outlined in its product portfolio to begin with. They don't have a huge top line. On that top line, they have a good bottom line, but the base is so low. So if they want a good ride, one can have an academic debate whether Government of India should. He mentioned the press note. We just heard what the External Affairs Minister said day before yesterday. He said an Indian economic growth story riding on Chinese efficiency is not something that we're looking at. He also urged Indian industry to get away from this Chinese fix. So I think the indication is very clear and solid. It happened just a day earlier. So in that sense, Chinese investments in India are welcome to the extent that I think there is fair amount of control. So with an Indian partner of deep financial pocket, I completely agree with Dilip that you can't bring in a filmacy partner who's just there for excitement of getting into automobiles and riding cars. You need companies with deep pockets. You must remember, Shweta, that Indian automobile sector at one point of time had about 17, 18 and mostly foreign owned companies, and many of them, especially American companies, have exited. So I would remember that Dilip mentioned that there's no joint venture. We have had a unsuccessful joint venture between Ford and Mahindra. So in that sense, there is not a great case study to look back. But looking forward, I would imagine that Indian companies have deep pockets, some of them. Reliance, you mentioned, has deep pockets.
Absolutely.
Very deep pockets.
But some experience also of running an automobile business.
Well, I don't think that will be a limitation. It's a question of where the market is headed.
Okay.
You look at Indian auto market with so many exits between Ford and General Motors, there's obviously a certain pattern in the market share. Maruti, we discussed it sometime earlier also when we were looking at the Maruti story, continues to hold about 40% plus share. So, I don't think they're going to drop that easily. So, and then there is a tight competition between Tata Motors, Mahindra and Hyundai. Hyundai is the second best, and at one point of time last year, Tata's overtook them. So the fight between second, third, fourth is so strong that we have 4 predominantly strong players. Whatever their origins are, let's not get into that.
Right.
So making an entry and trying to dislodge is not going to be easy. So someone with deep pockets, someone with a flair for the Indian consumer, And looking at the trajectory of the car penetration today, it's only going to grow many-fold.
Absolutely, especially in the SUV segment where MG is.
It is going to be across the
heavily
board.
reliant.
I'm saying the passenger vehicle. PV
Right.
as a category is going to grow phenomenally.
That is correct.
So there is a boom market awaiting if the Indian growth story continues to keep the momentum. In that sense, it could be anyone. I mean, we have got 3-4 names. JSW has denied, as Dilip rightly pointed out. But denial and acceptance, these are back and forth in a MAS situation, mergers and acquisition situation. These could happen. I did say that the company is out in the market. So let's hear our other guest Punus to share his insights in terms of what has he to say and what does he look at the future of MG Motors in India.
I am not sure if Mr. Tharayan is with us at the moment. I think he'll be joining in very, very shortly. So I'll take that question back to Dilip. Dilip, do you agree with the assessment made by Rakesh here? Obviously somebody with deep pockets, but it is also often said that it's important to have some sort of experience in running an automobile business. It may not be the case. Rakesh is saying that may not, or may have experience in running automobile business. But what is essentially needed is deep pockets in order to sustain in a market that is heavily competitive. And we're not eyeing the first position because we know 40% market is already held by one company. We're looking at second, third, fourth positions, and those positions have also consolidated over years.
Yes, well, I think, if you look at what is the current challenge, with the current production capacity, they can't be second or third or fourth, right? So they have to increase capacity to be able to compete for the second and third or fourth position, right? And they need finance. If you look at it, they also at one point had applied for the PLI scheme, right? And if they needed to apply for the PLI scheme, they needed other money other than from a neighboring country, and therefore they needed to go in for that. So I think, yes, they are pretty aggressive, and also understand that the current leadership, the management of MG, right? And Rakesh has talked to many of them. They are actually veterans in the Indian auto space, right? They've actually led companies in the Indian auto space, so they know the Indian auto space for quite some time. And I think if they have to increase and go in, the 50,000 crores that were talked about, they have to raise it from either India or elsewhere, right? Preferably in India, and take a secondary role so that it is not seen as a Chinese company. In fact, if you look at MG Motors, a lot of their advertisement talks about their relationship with London and UK. Morris Garage. They don't really talk about the Chinese connection here. So they will. It's a kind of essential reality that they need to look for an Indian partner if they want to vie for the second or third spot. Second or third spot in the span of 2 to 3 to 4 years is a bit difficult, right? And the Hyundai strategy was, rather than expanding from themselves, they actually bought in Kia. Okay. So if you really want to see, Kia plus Hyundai is still quite a substantial number.
What is the time frame, Dilip, that you're looking at in terms of this transaction happening? I don't see Government of India pushing the paddle right away in terms of asking them for a timeline. The company obviously is in the market. That's what I understand. I was told by senior company officials in, of course, confidence. But do you see this deal happening in the next 2 to 4 years, or is it on the canvas in the next year or so?
No, if they have to do it, then if they want to expand capacity and they want to take advantage of certain things that they're hoping to do, right? It really means the next 1 year. Okay.
Okay. Okay, next 1 year, very tight deadline
Very tight
there.
deadline, yeah.
Mr. Tharayan, who's the founder editor of Motown, is also joining us at the moment. I think I'm going to take the same question to you, Mr. Tharayan. We've been discussing MG Motors, bid to look for an Indian partner. What sort of timeline would you give to it? If you could also quickly run us through the new product offerings by MG. MG, has been in the business for a while, has been talking to media over the last 2 days, talking about its grand plan to raise more money and Indianize its management.
I hope this entire equity dilution takes place very soon. I mean, it all depends on what the government has to say or do. A lot depends there, because there is a bit of Chinese phobia in India. People, when we talk of China, we look at it with a sense of skepticism. But let me remind you of an advertisement long time back of Steel Authority sale. It said that there is a bit of sale in everybody's life. In the same way, I can say that there is a bit of China in all our homes, whether it is your computer, your refrigerator, your air conditioner, your compressor, your car, your PC, anything, there is a bit of China there. So let's understand the fact that there is going to be a lot of China in our lives and in our homes and in our workplaces. So having said that, MG Motor, which is has been in business since around 2017, has been doing fairly good, especially when it came out with the Hector, with the internet inside vehicle. It had a lot of very modern features, not just in terms of infotainment and entertainment, but also in terms of safety. When they brought in the Astor product, which is also doing pretty decently in the market, that too had high levels of ADAS, that is the advanced driver assistance systems. Now, these features were not known to Indian cars per se, many of the existing cars. So when it came from MG, we realized they are bringing in products that were very high in standard in terms of drivability, in terms of features, and in terms of technical inputs in the car.
No, Shweta, on the timelines, I do believe that that we are into an election year. So, while as we are hoping and praying that it happens in 1 year, it may take a little longer. And the other perspective is that what is the learning from Government of India's approach to the telephone and telecom sector? At one point of time, not in the, way back, it's in recent past that the Chinese companies dominated the Indian market before Samsung did a spring back and, so to say, sprung to leadership along with Apple as two main dominant players. So we had, Vivo, we had Oppo and OnePlus. They're all from, one particular company called BBK Enterprises, which is all Chinese owned. Right. So post-COVID, there was talk of Government of India putting a clamp on 12,000 rupees phones and below that, not being produced by these companies. But they, in right wisdom, didn't do that. So I would imagine that, Government of India would also not push them to go for the deal. I think they made their intent clear to them. And post that intent, like in the telecom sector, they have put many of the Chinese companies in the telecom space under radar in terms of asking for greater transparency when it comes to supply chain management, the repatriation of funds, investments being brought in, their origin. But that apart, they've not put the curtains on, these 3 or 4, telecom companies operating in India. Right. They've pulled the plug on the apps, 200 of them, but these still continue and exist. So in that sense, I don't think we need to be, too worried about this. This is an interesting development that an Indianized version of MG Motors will happen. So, welcome that. But they must be given the time and, space to so to say, effect this. Okay. Time and space, of course, will be given to them. They have set a deadline for themselves, which is in the next 2 to 6 years. That's the sort of deadline they are setting for themselves. Remember, by 2028, they're of course planning to extend the current capacity. They're hoping that they'll be able to produce 3 lakh units in India per se. May not happen, but a deadline for them there, and they are obviously looking to get an Indian company to get majority stakes in MG Motors. Now, actually, an Indian company can set up a 100% owned subsidiary in China because they just liberalized their auto sector rules a couple of years ago. Okay, wonderful, interesting there. So an Indian company can go set shop in China, but MG Motors India, they're looking for an Indian partner. Important story there. We'll keep discussing it. Thanks very much, Rakesh, for joining us with your inputs. Also, thanks to Dilip and P Tharayan for your inputs on that very, very important story. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Shifting focus now, Twitter is set to get a new CEO, and it will be a woman. Elon Musk took to social media to reveal that he has selected a new CEO to replace him at Twitter and parent X Holding, and that she will be joining in next 6 weeks.
Musk did not reveal the name, leading to speculations in the market. Now, according to media reports, Linda Yaccarino, who currently serves as the head of advertising at NBC Universal, is said to be the top contender. Now, Musk, remember, bought Twitter for $44 billion last October and indicated that he'd only be in charge for a limited time. In December, Musk, in a rather unscientific poll, asked his Twitter followers if he should step down as CEO. 57.5% said yes. And Musk is now expected to remain executive chairman after the transition takes place. Interesting story there. It's always a new day, never a dull day at Twitter. Joining me at this point in time are my colleagues Krishna Kumar. Also with us is Justin Thomas. Krishna, coming to you. As I said, never a dull day at Twitter. One day after the other, you have something popping up. And this time around, a major, sort of announcement. A new CEO, a woman, but we don't know who. Speculations are rife in the market.
Right. As far as speculation goes, there's the one woman who's been widely spoken about. That's because the Wall Street Journal in the US has reported about her, is Linda Yaccarino, who is currently the head of global advertising and sales at NBC Universal. Now, she apparently is a very hardcore Elon Musk supporter, loves the way he does things. He thinks she totally, idolizes him, and etc. Has been in talks with him before as well. In fact, interviewed him as well. And that's when the talks were supposed to have begun. And that's the reason why Wall Street Journal is sort of saying that, Linda Yaccarino could be the next CEO of Twitter. Bear in mind, Elon Musk in his tweet has just said it's going to be a she. There is another candidate who is the head of trust and safety currently at Twitter, who was promoted, Amelia Warren, who is also the other name that was taken. But for
another
now,
she.
Another she. So there's a two she possibility apart from Linda Yaccarino, just for the record. So Linda Yaccarino, a graduate of Penn State University in the US from the state of Pennsylvania, known to be an advocate of advertising effectiveness, and was, before her stint, more than a decade-long stint at the NBC Universal, where she's still as the head of advertising and sales. She was with the Turner Group as the head of advertising and sales for. She was COO by the time she quit Turner after 19 years at Turner. So you're talking about a veteran over here in the advertising and sales industry, coming in on as the CEO, whereas Elon Musk is going to stay back and look at other things, policy, system operations, and etc. Elon Musk is not going to be completely gone. But the onerous task of running Twitter will be go to the CEO, and this CEO comes from an advertising and sales background. That tells me something. Twitter has been struggling with advertising and sales ever since Elon Musk took over. And clearly, Elon Musk wants to get that back, and that seems to be the driving motive behind getting a she, and that she probably being Linda Yaccarino.
There has been, and since you mentioned advertising, there's been a drop of 50%, Justin, in the advertising sales, and massive decline in revenues for Twitter. And he has also been accused of neglecting his other businesses. It brought about a series of policy change. It's a mayhem at Twitter. You've been tracking Twitter, you've been tracking Elon Musk. Some sort of relief there for employees at Twitter?
I don't think so, because in fact, in February, he was saying that I will look for a CEO probably by the year end, okay? So now just 2 months down the line, he's already there. Probably the candidate is there, which tells us again that, there is, he makes a statement, then he takes back, or he comes forward, then he goes back. So that is going to keep his employees on the edge. But more importantly, I think he's building this towards, as he's been saying for a long while, he's a fan of China's WeChat app, which is an everything app where he's trying to pull on not just social media, but also other for financial institution like Paytm or something like that, all those coming together under one umbrella. So he is looking forward something bigger in his mind. Yes, he's been accused of being and neglecting his other businesses, but I think he doesn't cares about that, because he will do what he has to do.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, we're running short of time, but before I let you go, another interesting thing that he rolled out was the Twitter Blue subscription has seen a penetration of less than 1%. Expectations there have gone down to dust. So it looks like this change was perhaps much needed for someone to, bring in fresh air of energy, enthusiasm, and perhaps buck up the employees' morale.
And bucks up as well. And a fresh wave of money as well. Twitter needs money, $44 billion takeover we're talking about, and the ad sales have gone from bad to worse. So clearly Twitter is in need of money. You need somebody running Twitter which can sustain it as an organization. We all love Twitter, or people love Twitter because the platform is fantastic.
Okay.
But the platform has to be self-sustaining, as a business. And that's what this new Linda Yaccarino CEO thing is all about. Is what it seems very logical. From the way things have been going on at Twitter, the cost cutting that we've heard
cost
of,
cutting, and I want to bring in absolutely. I want to bring in just in there cost cutting, massive letting go of people left, right, and center. I disagree with you. I'm going to let you go.
Yes. But obviously, and the thing is that he's also getting back people he has fired already.
Okay.
So that is also the
Big
fun part out
turnaround.
here. So exactly. So nobody knows exactly what he wants to do. But as far as Elon Musk is concerned, I believe that he believes that because he has able to do good businesses in other parts of his businesses. That's why he's able to reflect the same thing out on Twitter also.
Right.
So
He's hoping the same sentiment such
Exactly.
as Tesla will reflect here on Twitter. Hasn't happened so far. Hopefully with the new management that will happen. Gentlemen, I would have loved to take this discussion forward, but unfortunately we're running short on time. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Plus. Keep watching News 9.